All right. Welcome, everybody, back to another edition of the Horsemen Pro Football Talk. I am Brad.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Jeff.
And we got a special guest with us today. Everybody, please welcome the Deuce from.
There's no the.
Yeah, the Deuce from Tampa Rock 98, right?
Yes, 98 Rock, Tampa Bay. Been with iHeartMedia for almost 20 years. I can celebrate a 20-year anniversary.
Oh, you're getting old, man.
Yep. I'll be elevator DJs and stuff.
So the Deuce is like the rest of us, a huge Colts fan. But like the rest of us, he's also a Tampa fan. Being down here, we all came down right around the same time, really. So today we're going to talk about the AFC South, and we're going to tell some hard truths about some of these teams that think they've got a shot to win this division. Then we're going to tell the truth about the one team that does have a shot to win the division, right?
All right. Here we go.
All right. So I'll kick us off. Everybody knows, I'm sure everybody's in agreement, the Jaguars, where we're going to start with this, the other Florida team, as we refer to them sometimes. For those that don't know, we do have 3 football teams, and Jacksonville is included in that. Sometimes we claim them. Their head coach, Doug Marrone, he was named the interim coach the last 2 games of the 2016 season. He replaced Gus Bradley, who had like a 20% win percentage in 4 years or something, just nightmarishly disgusting. Doug's gone 22-28 in 3 years. He's not exactly blazing a trail there either. He was 15-17 as a head coach in Buffalo. Man, I got to put him on the North Turner, Jim Caldwell list. I don't get it. He hired offensive coordinator Jay Gruden, because he's got a cool last name that everybody knows in the NFL. You guys know what Jay Gruden has accomplished?
Nothing.
I'm glad you asked. Let me tell you. He was a coordinator in Tampa, won a Super Bowl under his brother.
Hold on. Jay Gruden did not win a Super Bowl either. He just happened to get Tony Dungy's team.
You're not gonna like what I have to say about Dungy later. I have some controversial opinions about Dungy. But good point. There is certainly an argument with that. But Jay, as the offensive coordinator here, they were ranked the bottom half of the league every year he was here with his brother until John got fired. So he went to the Bengals, offensive coordinator there. And under his bio, one of the highlights that they hit for him is that he won the division in 2013 as the offensive coordinator of the Bengals. That's it. That's their highlight. That's their trophy they're holding up. I'm not making this up. Never mind that Andy Dalton threw for over 4,000 yards that year. I don't know if Gruden had something to do with that or not. Dalton's pretty good at throwing about 3,500 yards a year anyway, so I don't know if he had anything to do with it. And then he was the head coach of the team formerly known as the Washington Redskins. Coached them to their first back-to-back winning seasons in 15 years, but they finished 9-7 and then 8-7-1. I don't know I don't know those are big trophies to hoist in the air either. I swear, I'm not making this up. This was actually in his bio. They were praising the guy for that. When they made the playoffs, he lost 35-18 to the Packers in the wild card game. He missed the playoffs the next year. Started 0-5 in 2019. I've even got some offensive ranking numbers. I'm not even going to go through those. It's just not very good. He had Kirk Cousins in Washington, and their offense was in the top half of the league for a couple of years. And then they were 29th in 2018, but that's when Alex Smith got hurt, and they were doing the thing with Colt McCoy and Mark Sanchez. And if you're relying on Colt McCoy and Mark Sanchez, you probably are going to lose your job. And then some guy named Josh Johnson, who nobody knows who he is. So, the defense coordinator is Todd Wash. Who's that? Yeah, exactly. He was a defensive assistant in Seattle. Now he's the defense coordinator in Jacksonville. But the interesting thing is that he's put together some pretty stellar defenses in the 2 out of the 4 years that he's been there. So I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit more here. That may be the only thing really they have going for him, but none of that, in my opinion, is going to matter. The displeasure and the mishandling of Yannick Ngakoue, the highlights of the rumors of the dysfunctional front office that we've heard, potential cancer in the locker room because they haven't dealt with the situation. You take a floundering, mediocre head coach, a mediocre offensive coordinator, and mix in potential cancer in the locker room, and especially on the defensive end, which may be the only thing they have going for them. It's the only thing. So that would only leave having a celebrity movie star quarterback like Uncle Rico, taking snaps. So I think they've got an unraveling on the brink. Back in the toilet they go again this year. They're lucky to win 5 games. It's hard to go winless in any division. Division games, there's something spectacular about them, but I think the Jags may be able to pull that off this year, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on them. I have them going 0-6 in the division, only winning 3 games. I think they were toss-up games all year. Doug Marrone, he's not going to be there very long. They'll be doing another coaching carousel. I agree with you on Jay Gruden and Todd Wash. But their defense, it was good. They had stacked players, but they're shipping them out. Jalen Ramsey's gone. He's with the Rams. They lost Calais Campbell. Yannick's not happy. On the offensive side, you got Gardner Minshew versus Mike Glennon this year. It was Minshew versus Foles, so they don't even have a solid quarterback. I'm not on the Minshew train by any stretch of the imagination.
Agreed.
And then there's Leonard Fournette, where there's trade rumors going around with him too. So to me, it looks like they're trying to rebuild, but it's the Jags, so I don't think they'll ever get it done.
I'm pretty on par with what you guys are saying. Minshew, people in Jacksonville love Gardner Minshew, and they're pretty much the only people I see giving him any love.
It's like a movie. It's like a movie star love.
Yeah, pretty much. Like you were saying, just like Uncle Rico's, like they love that persona for some reason. But that persona is not going to go win you football games.
That's right.
They have Leonard Fournette. A lot of people like him and think he's great and all that. I just think he's average to slightly above average kind of back. He gets hurt too much for my liking. He'll probably get hurt this year. Really, the only thing about this team that shows any promise is DJ Chark. He seems like a kind of guy that's going to be like a superstar number 1 receiver. I guess it just kind of depends what they put around him. On the defensive side, like the Yannick Ngakoue thing, I don't know why they haven't let him go. If they're shipping out all this talent and guys that were there during the last regime, under the Tom Coughlin thing, people that aren't happy, you might as well get them out of the building, I would think. And you keep a guy like Miles Jack in the building, he can keep people together, but they're just there's the lingering dysfunction. The Jags, they've only been around for like 22 years or something, and they haven't had that much success, and it looks like they're not going to have success anytime soon.
I think this is the most conversation that the Jaguars have ever heard from a group of guys, period. That's how irrelevant they are. Okay, this is a team that just hasn't done anything. They had their one magical year, 3-4 years ago. It's Jacksonville. It's. I mean, let's be honest. It's the team that you'll never take the Cincinnati Bengals serious. You'll never take the Cleveland Browns serious, and you'll never take the Jacksonville Jaguars serious. That team that's just like, they're what makes the AFC so ridiculously year after year named the worst division in football. It's always because of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Titans have always been pretty decent throughout the years. The Colts have their history. Houston is underwhelming as they perform in the playoffs. They always seem to have a lot of talent and stars. Then there's Jacksonville.
It gives us 2 preseason games mid-season.
That's right. And I'm sure we'll get to this in a bit because there's another team in this division now that I feel is going to end up like the Jaguars because they're getting the same hype that the Jaguars got 3-4 years ago without proving anything. So, yeah, I think we all know what I'm talking about by now. But look, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. And if you've ever driven up there or been to that city, that's like the football team.
Oh, y'all. We're in a group, an AFC South group, and all the Jacksonville fans, they're just always screaming Duval, y'all. I don't know where that came from, but quite
Let me
common.
ask you this: when you go to a sporting event, any sporting event, you'll see tons of jerseys from other teams: Patriots jerseys, Steelers jerseys, Colts jerseys, Green Bay. When have you ever seen anyone rocking a Jaguars jersey?
That's right.
Very true.
Ever, except for here in Florida. So I mean,
I'm gonna buy you one. I'm gonna buy you one for Christmas, Deuce.
Thanks.
Will you wear it?
And let's not forget, this is also the idiotic franchise that decided to put a dirty, nasty pool in their stadium with the glass walls so drunk idiots drinking Budweiser could sit in there while watching a football game.
And pee in the pool.
Pee in the pool. How awesome is that? That's where this franchise is at.
Are the pool tickets more expensive? That's what I want to know.
Oh, that's what I wanted to know. I saw the pool picture and I went, who would sit in that? Who is going to sit in that, drinking and spilling and sloshing your beer everywhere? Go Jaguars! I mean,
Ball, y'all.
We've seen who goes to football games. I'm not sitting in a hot tub with you guys.
Yeah, me either.
So, yeah.
All right. So there it is. Bottom of the barrel. Everybody, how many games do you think they'll win, Deuce?
2, maybe 3.
Yeah.
2. I'm going to go 2.
How many Jeff have? What'd you have, Jeff?
I'm at 2-14.
Yeah, I got 3.
Yeah, I just said they'd be lucky if they win 5. They won't do that.
It's really hard to go winless.
It is.
As much as people praise going, you win every game, going winless is just as impressive if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to do.
It really is. Yeah, I think we talked about that a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
It is tough to do. So it's everybody, what's that? The sun shines on a dog's ass every once in a while.
You have to be in complete. We are trying to lose mode.
All right, let's move on. You were talking a minute ago, Deuce. I assumed you were talking about the Titans.
Yes.
Is that who you were talking about? So
I'm not saying the Titans won't be good.
Yeah.
One of the things that the NFL has gotten really bad about, it feels like over the last 5 or 6 years, is anointing before things happen.
Yeah.
Whether it's a rookie quarterback, whether it's someone coming out of college, whether it's a team. And everybody to all of a sudden be on this Titan bandwagon, like they're going to be in the AFC Championship game and this year again, and it's a done deal. And I'm like, first of all, they barely made the playoffs last year. It was between them and the Colts, and it came down to the last game of the season. Yeah. They got in because the Colts lost. We all know. And I'm not saying they didn't earn it, but I'm saying they weren't a dominating regular season team. And look, what they did in the playoffs was impressive. I enjoyed watching Henry run over people. I mean, it was fun to watch. But do I think that this is automatically as a Super Bowl team? Dude, let me see them do it 2 years in a row. Let's see Ryan Tannehill do it 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
Let's see Derrick Henry stay healthy. Let's slow the train down a bit.
Yeah, I think we all agree with that too. I personally think, and because we talk about this all the time, I know these guys agree with me. I think the Texans are going the wrong way.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I think we're gonna roll over. We're gonna roll through the Texans next. So, the Texans fans are excited. I get it. They've been strong the last couple of years. They finally got a chance to win the division a couple times. But Bob, damn, this Bill O'Brien.
There's one reason why, and that's it right there.
Yeah. I mean, you can say it a couple different ways. You can say it 21-3, or you can say it 51-31, or you can say it 48-10, which is how much they got outscored in the second half. Talking about obviously the playoff game last year when the Chiefs embarrassed them. All the Falcons fans all over the world rejoiced and were pumping their fists because they no longer look like the jackasses of the NFL after that collapse. But when you break it down and look at the Texans record. All right, so in Bob's tenure, you got 9-7 the first 3 years, then 4-12. You got 11-5 and 10-6, and this is in a broken down division. I mean, all these teams have been at the bottom of the AFC for the last couple of years. Once the Colts fell off and they've struggled to get it back. This hasn't exactly been a dominant division, and there's still they're still not really not really a powerhouse. And until last year, I thought they improved last year. I mean, I don't want to just beat on these guys tremendously because they put together a good program, but I think O'Brien is the problem. You know who had a better record over the same period of time? Chuck Pagano. I got it right here in front of me. He actually won one more game over the same time period as O'Brien. So it's not really speaking well to talk about how we're building a dynasty here in Houston. And Pagano's a nice guy. I like him, but we know that it didn't go as well as we'd all like. And not only that, but Pagano actually made it to an AFC Championship game. So Houston won the division last year. They split with the Colts, but they split with these are the same Colts that lost their all-pro quarterback 2 weeks before the season started, arguably potentially a Hall of Fame quarterback. The same Colts that their never-miss Hall of Fame kicker arguably may have cost them 4 games. They still split with them in the division. Undo all that hot mess that happened in Indy last year, and the division battle looks way different, which we're going to get into eventually, I'm sure. Not that it would have mattered in the end. The Chiefs were fulfilling their destiny. I don't know. They had a couple of hiccups along the way. They certainly overcame those, Texas game being one of them. You get my point. You throw in the boneheaded front office moves. This franchise is they're flirting with mediocrity. I mean, the best is that they end up being slightly above average. The worst is that they end up taking a nosedive and going backwards. Despite the talent, I think this may be the beginning of the end. Not that they won't make the playoffs this year. I'm not saying that. I just think that that they're moving in the wrong direction. I don't consider them a threat. I don't think they have the talent to make a run and put it together in the postseason.
No, I'm with you. I think this is the year that they're going to completely wipe out. I only have them winning 5 games. I think the years past, they've had all the talent in the world. They could have made Super Bowl runs if it wasn't for Bill O'Brien. He's just tearing them down by the seams. We've talked about it before, the whole DeAndre Hopkins trade. That was a huge blunder. I mean, yeah, you got David Johnson out of it and later Brandon Cooks, but they're not DeAndre Hopkins. He was one of the best receivers in the league. So that's going to hurt tremendously. Deshaun Watson is really the only reason why they're going to win games this year. But I don't see with Bill O'Brien there, the Texans getting any better than they have been. It's only going to regress.
I think the offense, it's obviously going to be structured differently without Hopkins there. But they have 4 receivers on their team that are, kind of like number 2 receivers. And with that many weapons, and you have a guy in Deshaun Watson whose nickname is the Magician for a good reason, and you'll have some mismatch opportunities, but they don't have like a Travis Kelce, Zach Ertz tight end. Work out David Johnson doesn't seem to be the way he used to, especially behind a subpar offensive line. I just don't know how that's going to work out. The defense, the front 7 for that defense looks pretty good, but the secondary is going to be burnt toast all year. So I expect them to get exploited and lose a lot of games because they're not going to be able to stop anybody.
Well, I mean, look, for me, the Texans are maybe, to me, the most underperformed team of the last 10, 12 years. This is a team that's really always had a lot of talent, whether it was running backs, receivers, quarterbacks have been somewhat of an issue. Deshaun Watson is definitely the best quarterback they've had in a long time. I mean, he's certainly better than what was his name, Oswell, that used to play for them before he went to Denver.
Mm-hmm.
And Peyton Manning. But Bill O'Brien, to me, he reminds me. It's funny because I was watching Pat McAfee's podcast the other day, and it's no secret how he feels about Ryan Grigson and that whole culture that this individual had created. I mean, I'm still boggled by the story of the day that Ryan Grigson, there was a mural in the Colts facility that's got like Johnny Unitas on it, Peyton Manning on it, and Edwin James, and he had it painted over white. Ryan Grigson did.
I hadn't heard that story.
Oh, yeah. I don't personally know Bill O'Brien, but he seems like a cancer. That same kind of Ryan Grigson's biggest problem was that Ryan Grigson wanted to be the star. He wanted to be all about him. Belichick is sometimes in the same way. That's why I'm going to be curious to see what's going to start happening with the Patriots, because you're hearing more and more players come out and say they were miserable. And Bill O'Brien seems to provide that kind of atmosphere, that kind of locker room thing that's just no one's happy. Something's always just going wrong. There's just the whole Hopkins thing. I mean, I'm sure every single person in the world that watches sports was just like, what? He did what? Deshaun Watson is the only shining star. I love Deshaun Watson. I've been a Deshaun Watson fan since watching him whoop on my Seminoles when he was at Clemson. I mean, you're talking about the guy that was kind of the first guy to take down Alabama, Nick Saban in Alabama, coming back. I mean, the guy he just got it, I think. I hope they don't do what Ryan Grigson did. I hope they don't ruin his career like Brian and that culture ruined Andrew Luck's career, because if they're not careful, that's where they're headed.
Yeah.
You got him. You got J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt. How can you not love J.J. Watt? He's a good guy. He cares about the community. He's a hell of a player, and he actually had a pretty good year last year coming back from injury. I think they're going to at least get 6, 7 wins, just because they have not just a couple talented players, but those 2 talented players are really extremely talented players. I mean, it's kind of like you said, Jeff, about Deshaun Watson. I mean, he's got that thing. He just always wins for some reason. It just seems to figure something out. But other than that, I don't want to get off on a tangent, but that's why I'm not a Jacoby Brissett fan. I don't want to be just a 7-9 team every year,
right?
Year after year. And that's what the Houston Texans are going to be.
Yeah. And I would be surprised if the Texans win 9 or 10 games. They've got everything they need. I think between 6 and 10 is a good call, and they'll probably get in the playoffs and then just not go anywhere. That's where the mediocrity is. We're on the same page. I agree completely.
Look at the playoffs. I mean, remember when the Colts used to get so much slack when Peyton Manning, after his kind of that remarkable second-year turnaround, and they started going to the playoffs, and it was he can't win a playoff game, can't win a playoff game, can't win a playoff game. I mean, something happens to the Texans in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And
they know it, and that becomes a mental part of the game, and they're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. And any time something starts to go wrong, it becomes a mental block, becomes a mental problem. Now they're fighting to correct the problem rather than just doing what they did to win in the first place.
Why would you get rid of a receiver? And I know you guys have all said this before, but we forget Deshaun Watson is still a young football player. You know what I mean? He is still young. He's still learning. This is the exact opposite of what you do. You're supposed to surround your very talented but still very young with talent around him, veteran talent around him, and then you chuck that away from him. And that, to me, feels like in the reports that have come out about this wasn't a Sean didn't want to be their thing, or excuse me, Hopkins didn't want to be their thing. It seems like this was like a pissing match between him and Bill O'Brien, and Bill O'Brien's like, I'll show you who's boss. You're out of here. Well, great. You just screwed your team.
It wasn't even a good trade either.
Right. Randy Cooks? Didn't he come from that? What's that team with the brown paper bags? The Browns. That's right.
Yeah, the only organization that can make worse decisions got the better end of the deal.
No, I don't know. It's they're that team that's, and look, as long as they have Deshaun Watson, they're always going to have a chance to, like you said, win 6, 7, 9 games possibly. When you've got that, that's what Andrew Luck did for us.
Yeah. And if everything comes together and they peak at the right time, they may make a run.
That's a type of
everything has to go in their favor. And I don't, like you said with Brissett, I don't want to. If I'm a coach or a GM, which he's both or whatever, I don't want an organization that has to get lucky and other people have to lose. Which we're going to get into that in this division. This division is going to come down to what Tennessee and the Colts do this year. We're getting ready to talk about that. So, in my opinion, the Texans' success is going to fare upon what Reich and Vrabel do. And that's not a position I want to be in. You need to control your own destiny. So, all right, we've beaten that horse. I think we're all in agreement there.
First, you're last.
That's right.
That's my favorite motto. Nothing else matters. Mediocrity sucks.
Mediocrity sucks.
And you don't even get a good draft pick out of it.
True statement. Unless you win your division in 2013, then they put it on your resume. Right. If your name's Gruden. All right, Tennessee Titans. I like the Titans. I hate it. They're in the same division as the Colts because I really want to root for them. But when push comes to shove, I refuse. I'm a Tannehill fan. I thank God Tannehill got out from under Gase and that disaster down here in South Florida, and he's getting a shot to prove himself. And whether he does or whether he doesn't, and I think he will, it really doesn't matter. In the end, he will know whether he could make it in this league or not under normal circumstances, I guess. So I'm glad he's got a second chance at life. I'm glad he did well, kind of set him up for this year. And we're going to see what he does. The caveat to that is they lean. If you can lean pretty heavily on a guy like Derrick Henry for the play action, that'll really set you up to have some opportunities. But in the end, you still have to take advantage of those opportunities. You still have to make the plays when it counts. And he was able to do that. So anyway, I'm sorry, I'm out of my coach's box. Let's get on to Mike Vrabel here. Belichick coaching tree. I know Belichick's a 4-letter word for people come out of Indianapolis, but can't argue with his coaching success. He was a linebacker coach and a defensive coordinator under Romeo Crennel, who's with the Houston Texans currently. And I'm not a huge Romeo Crennel fan, but I respect the guy's longevity and defensive success in the league. His resume pretty much speaks for itself. He's created some great defensive over the team. So Vrabel has been able to absorb a lot of that. And obviously, the exposure and the experience, not only Crennel, but also with Belichick. So 97 his first 2 years as head coach in Tennessee, made it to the AFC Championship last year. They beat the Patriots. You still beat the Patriots until otherwise. They proven otherwise. They deserve some respect. They're not the team they were, and we talked about that a couple weeks ago. But they beat the Ravens. Now
that was a fluke.
Yeah. Well, you got a young quarterback too, who probably has watched a lot of game film over the year. But they still beat the Ravens. You know what? And we'll see what happens. This year, they had a decent showing against the Chiefs. So as decent as you're going to have in the AFC Championship. But this is Vrabel's shit or get off the pot moment. I mean, Titans fans have argued with me that Vrabel's already proven himself, and I'm not buying it. I like the guy. I like what he's done. I think they got a real potential that he may be building something there, but I'm not ready to give him that yet. I'm impressed, but I'm not convinced. The division's been down. He still was only 9-7 2 years. I mean, you got a winning record. I'm happy you were 9-7. It's still the NFL. It's hard to win. It's still the division's been down. What if they're average or even slightly above average, and they just peaked at the right time last year? There's that whole the sun shines on a dog's ass every once in a while thing. Barry Switzer won a freaking Super Bowl, for crying out loud. So jury's still out. Personally, I think the Titans are onto something. They could win the division. 10 wins. I don't know. 6 wins. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm on the fence with Mike Vrabel too. I think he's building something good. I think the playoffs last year was a fluke. I mean, they were good. Don't get me wrong, and they deserve to win those games. But with the way all the Titans fans have been talking, they talk like they're the next best thing in the league, like they're going to win the Super Bowl this year.
That's what the Deuce is talking about.
Yeah. So I think last year, Derrick Henry, he's just a monster. And the contract they signed with him recently was good for the team. He didn't take a whole lot of money, so they'll be able to put pieces around. So long term, that's a great deal that they signed with Henry there. And Tannehill did his job last year. He gave the ball to Henry, let him do his thing, protected the ball, managed the clock, made throws when he needed to make throw. He did his job. But teams adjust very well. So if Henry gets hurt or they start shutting Henry down, I don't know if Tannehill will be able to stay consistent enough to win them games like he was doing last year. So there's a big question mark there for me. And then on the defensive side, their defense was mediocre. I think they gave up on average 21 points a game last year, which was like 12th best in the league. But other than that, it's just all their stats are in the bottom half of the league when it comes to like rushing yards and passing yards per game and all that. So their defense has to stay consistent. Tannehill has to stay consistent. Derrick Henry has to stay healthy in order for them to continue to do well. I have them 9-7, 5-1 in the division. They're going to split it with the Colts, and I got them the number 7 seed in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm a little higher on the Titans than you. Everybody, to toot my own horn here, a couple years ago when Tannehill was with the Dolphins, I'm pretty sure I was the only person on earth that was talking about Tannehill's the guy they just got to get rid of Gates. And then, he goes to Tennessee and he balls out, which I expect him to be able to do again. But this team is going to run through Derrick Henry. I don't think that's a secret at this point. I think an issue for this offense is going to be the offensive line. Losing Jack Conklin is going to be a pretty big deal for them, I feel like. It's going to change some of the running schemes. I don't know who they're plugging in there, but Jack Conklin is probably a top 5 at his position. So it's not easy to replace offensive linemen like that. Might change the dynamic a little bit, but I like the weapons that the Titans have. A.J. Brown looks like he's going to be probably a top 5 receiver in the next year or two. Jonnu Smith at tight end, he's kind of an athletic freak. It'll be interesting to see if he can take on a bigger role and what happens with their offense. But I like their defense, their secondary mostly. Their front seven's gotten a little shaky after the trade of Jarrell Casey. They brought in Vic Beasley, but he's been pretty inconsistent his whole career. So I don't expect that to be a game-changing addition to their team. But Kevin Byard, the free safety, he's a game changer. He's been balling for the last couple of years. I feel like people don't talk about him because it's the Titans. They go 9-7 every year. Nobody really talks about him. But Kevin Byard is easily probably top 5 at his position. And I have the Titans finishing at 12-4 this year.
Wow. All right. 12.
That's pretty high.
That's extremely high. You're correct, Jeff. I am not as high on the Titans as you are. You are very high on the Titans. Wow. Here's my I don't have anything negative to say about the Titans, and I know it's going to come across that way. I don't dislike the Titans. Titans, I think they're kind of that NFL team that, everybody kind of likes, right? They come from a cool city. They seem like nice people. All I'm saying is let's wait and see. Every year there's a team that comes out of nowhere and has this great season, has this remarkable run. You look at just about any interview that you see with Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or Bill Belichick, Tony Dungy, and they've all said the same thing about the hardest thing about winning is consistently winning. Because once you become known and you're on the map and you become a team that gets circled on the calendar and people start making adjustments to you, how do you respond? Right now, all we know about the Titans, I'm not saying Tannehill's not any good, but right now, all that we know is that they're a one-trick pony. And that's Henry. Like I said, I loved watching last year's playoff games. I think anybody that's a football fan loves seeing that old school just run them over, be a man amongst boys, which is what Henry was in the playoffs, particularly when you know he's coming and you still can't stop him. But for us to assume that defenses and coaches are not going to make adjustments this year when they've got Tennessee Titans on the game, on the schedule there, you're gravely mistaken. I agree with you, Z, that it's going to come down to Tannehill. And look, I'm not saying Tannehill's bad. None of us really know what Tannehill is yet. I think we've all liked him. We've all think like he's a good quarterback. Nobody's ever called him a bust. But maybe it's because he didn't have a chance in Miami. Who knows? But we need to see what's going to happen next year before I start anointing them the guaranteed winner of the division, the guaranteed going to the AFC Championship. Not only that, maybe I'm partial because I'm a Colts fan. It's an insult to Colts as well. To say they're the done deal winner of the division. I'm sorry. All 3 teams last year pretty much finished with the same record. And the Titans, just like the Texans, got help getting into the playoffs by virtue of the Colts and the Texans on that last week of the weekend. Did they have a great run? They had a great run. But let's not also forget this. Yeah, they beat the Patriots. Patriots had their worst ranked offense in their entire dynasty years was last year.
Yep. Agreed.
Okay. And it was a perfect storm. Running game, control the clock, Ryan Henry. So let's not act like they took down Tom Brady. He was Randy Mossing it all over the field because they were not that team. No one thought the Patriots were the Patriots last year. So, yes. As far as hanging with the Chiefs, everybody hung with the Chiefs in the playoffs. The Chiefs were trailing in every playoff game in the first half. They seem to be that second half team. Will they win the division? Sure, they've got a chance. But I'm not ready to anoint them the kings of the division. Not yet.
No. I think we all agree with you. And this really could go either way. This is that young coach that hasn't proven himself, and he could. This whole thing could nosedive, and he could be fired by the end of the year.
Look at this. Look at the Jaguars when they went to the AFC Championship. 3 years ago, whatever that was.
Yeah.
And their quarterbacks are getting big contracts on other teams, and I'm just saying all of it. How's that all worked out?
Yep.
Not so well. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen to the Titans, but let's just, not to mention, look, I think we all agree that Patrick Mahomes is a badass. I'm not ready to say anoint him the greatest one of all time, but the dude is something that we haven't seen before. And it's going to get to a point where people are going to figure out, in order to hang with these Ravens and hang with these Chiefs, you have to score a lot of points. That is something the Texans do not do.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Tight.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us as we break down and review the AFC South. Yes, I know we have forgotten someone. Join us next week as we review the future of the Indianapolis Colts, and we talk about the exciting upcoming 2020 season, what that's going to look like, with our special guest, the Deuce from Tampa 98 Rock, formerly of X103 Q95 in Indianapolis. We're going to break this season down for this team. Maybe a season on the brink. Can the Colts win it this year? Can they win the division? Are they a Super Bowl contender? Find out next week on the Horsemen Pro Football Talk podcast.